Admiral Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, watching the alien ships approach through the main view screen. After 300 years of trying, humans had finally built ships that could travel faster than light. Now, just 2 weeks into their first deep space mission, they had found other intelligent life. The alien fleet was beautiful. 7 different ship designs floated in perfect formation, each one unique and elegant. Some looked like giant flowers made of metal and light. Others resembled sea creatures with flowing fins that glowed in the darkness of space. All of them were much larger than the human ship. "Admiral," Captain Kim So-min said from her station, "they're sending another message." Park nodded. "Put it through, Captain." The main screen changed to show an alien face. The creature had pale blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and what looked like scales instead of hair. When it spoke, the translation computer turned its words into Korean. "Greetings, young ones from the 3rd planet. I am High Commander Vexatal of the Hegemony Fleet. We represent the Galactic Coalition. We have come to welcome you into civilized space." Park stepped forward. "I am Admiral Park Tae-ho of the Earthship Soul's Pride. We thank you for this meeting." Alien's face showed what might have been amusement. "Your gratitude is noted. We have observed your species for some time since you achieved faster-than-light travel. We are here to guide you in the proper ways of galactic civilization." Dr. Lee. Jae-wook, the ship's expert on alien life, moved closer to Park. "Admiral, I think we should be careful about the word guide. In their language, it might mean something more like control." Park kept his expression neutral. "Hi, Commander, we appreciate your offer. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss our cultures." "Indeed," Vextal replied. "We are most curious about your people, especially your military capabilities. War is an art form among civilized species. We would be honored to see how your people understand combat." Behind Park, Commander Yoon Da-eun, head of ship security, made a small sound. Park glanced at her and saw her concerned expression. Something about the alien's tone bothered her too. "We would be happy to share our military history," Park said carefully. "Excellent. Prepare your ship for docking. We will host you aboard our command vessel." The communication ended. Park turned to his officers. "What do you think?" Captain Kim folded her arms. "They seem friendly, but there's something strange about how they talk about war like it's art." Dr. Lee was already working at his computer. "Admiral, I've been studying their language patterns. When they say civilized space, they're not just talking about being polite. They seem to have very specific ideas about how things should be done." Commander Yoon stepped forward. "Sir, I recommend we keep our weapons ready. Something feels wrong about this." Park nodded. "Agreed. But we need to learn about them. This is humanity's first contact with aliens. We can't mess this up." 2 hours. Later, Park and a small team were aboard the alien command ship. The corridors were wide and decorated with what looked like battle scenes, but they were strange battles. The fighting figures moved in formal poses, like dancers rather than soldiers. Everything was clean and beautiful, even the weapons shone in the artwork. They entered a large room where several aliens waited. Besides High Commander Vextal, there was War Scholar Crix Moth, a tall alien with gray skin and 6 arms, and Battle Singer Quendar, whose body seemed to be made of living crystal. "Welcome to the Harmony of Purpose," Vextal said. "Please show us your military traditions." Dr. Lee had prepared a presentation about human military history. He started with ancient battles, showing images of Roman legions and medieval knights. The aliens nodded approvingly at these formal organized conflicts. Then he moved to more recent wars. When images of World War II appeared on the screen, the aliens' expressions changed. They saw bombed cities, soldiers fighting in mud and blood, and weapons designed to kill as many people as possible. War Scholar Crix Moth's 6 arms moved in what Dr. Lee realized was a sign of distress. "What manner of savagery is this? Where are the honor guards? Where are the formal challenges?" Battle Singer Quendar's crystal body flickered with red light. "They fight without ceremony, without beauty. This is not war. This is butchery. Dr. Lee tried to explain. In human history, wars were fought for survival. We had to use every advantage we could find. High Commander Vextal held up one of his forehands. Enough. We see that your species has much to learn about proper warfare. He gestured to the wall displays around them. Park looked more carefully at the battle scenes. Now he understood what had seemed strange about them. The fighters in the pictures were not trying to kill each other quickly. They fought in elegant poses, with rules and limits that made the battles look more like games than real combat. For 3,000 years, the Coalition has perfected the art of civilized warfare, Vextal explained. Battles are fought at agreed locations with equal numbers of warriors, using appropriate weapons. The goal is to demonstrate superior skill and strategy, not to cause unnecessary death. Captain Kim couldn't hide her confusion. But if you're fighting a war, don't you fight to win? Of course, replied war scholar Crixmoth. But victory must be achieved with honor. Civilians are never harmed. Surrender is always accepted immediately. Environmental damage is minimized. Death in combat is rare and is considered a tragedy for both sides. Commander Yoon spoke quietly to Park. Sir, they're talking about war like it's a sport. Park was beginning to understand something troubling. These aliens had never faced the kind of desperate total warfare that had shaped human history. To them, military conflict was a formal game with strict rules. They had no idea what humans meant when they talked about fighting for survival. High Commander Vextal continued speaking. Your species shows promise, but you clearly need education in proper military conduct. The hegemony has been chosen to provide this guidance. The word guidance was translated the same way Dr. Lee had heard it before. But now Park was sure it meant something closer to control or rule over. What if we prefer to maintain our own military traditions? Park asked. The alien's 4 eyes focused on him with surprise. That is not possible. All species in coalition, space must follow proper warfare protocols. To do otherwise would be to spread chaos and barbarism throughout the galaxy. Battle singer Quendar's crystal form chimed with musical tones. We have seen your history, Admiral. Your people fight like wild beasts. This cannot be allowed to continue. Park felt his temper rising, but he kept his voice calm. High Commander, humanity has survived for thousands of years using our methods. They have served us well. Against other primitives, perhaps, Vextal replied dismissively. But you are no longer alone in the universe. You must adapt to civilized standards. Dr. Lee tried diplomacy. Perhaps we could find a compromise. Our peoples have much to learn from each other. War scholar Crixmoth made a gesture that looked negative. There can be no compromise with chaos. Order must be maintained. High Commander Vextal stood, his imposing height making the humans feel small. Admiral Park, I will give your species time to consider our offer of guidance. But understand this. All who enter Coalition space must follow Coalition law. Your barbaric methods of warfare will not be tolerated. The meeting was clearly over. As the humans were escorted back to their ship, Park noticed that what he had first taken for decorative guards were actually weapons. The aliens had been ready for trouble, but their weapons looked ceremonial, more like works of art than practical tools. Back aboard the Soul's Pride, Park gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. They want to control us, Commander, Yoon said immediately. That whole speech about guidance was a threat. Captain Kim nodded. And they think we're primitive barbarians because we actually fight to win wars. Dr. Lee was studying his notes. I think they're genuinely shocked by human military history. Their whole civilization seems built around the idea that warfare should be limited and formal. They've probably never seen anything like total war. Which means they don't understand what humans are capable of, Park said thoughtfully. They think they're dealing with an uncivilized species that needs to be taught proper behavior. What do we do, Admiral? Captain Kim asked. Park looked out at the alien fleet through the briefing room's small window. We go back to Earth and warn them. These aliens aren't just offering friendship. They're demanding submission. Commander Yoon leaned forward. Sir, what if they don't let us leave? Before Park could answer, the ship's communication system activated. High Commander Vextal's face appeared on the screen. Admiral Park, the Coalition Council has made their decision. Your species has 7 of your days to accept our guidance and agree to learn proper warfare protocols. If you refuse, we will be forced to provide a demonstration of civilized military superiority. The screen went dark. Park looked at his officers and saw the same realization in their eyes that he felt in his heart. The aliens had just declared war on humanity, and they thought it would be easy. Set course for Earth, Park ordered. Maximum speed. As the Soul's Pride jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the alien fleet behind, Park wondered what would happen when these civilized warriors discovered that humans had learned to fight in a very different school. A Shao, General Choi Minho, stood in the emergency meeting room deep under Seoul, surrounded by Earth's top military leaders. The room's screens showed data from Admiral Park's encounter with the aliens, and none of it looked good. 7 days, General, Choi said, looking around the table. They give us 7 days to surrender or they start a war. Colonel An Hee-jin, leader of Earth's Special Operations Forces, studied the alien ship designs on her tablet. Sir, their technology is clearly superior to ours. Those ships are at least twice the size of our largest vessels. But did you see their weapons? Asked Admiral Song Ye-rim, commander of Earth's space fleet. They look more like art pieces than actual military equipment. Dr. Lee Jae-wook, who had returned with Admiral Park, stood to address the group. That's because they treat war like art. Everything I learned suggests they've turned military conflict into a formal game with strict rules. President Kim Dae-han, joining the meeting by video link, leaned forward on the screen. Dr. Lee, explain exactly what we're dealing with. Dr. Lee activated a holographic display showing images from the alien ship. The Galactic Coalition has 7 member species. For 3,000 years, they've fought wars using what they call civilized protocols. Battles happen at agreed locations with equal numbers of fighters, using approved weapons. The goal is to demonstrate superiority, not to destroy the enemy. Major Kang Tae-jun, head of military intelligence, shook his head. That's not war, that's a tournament. Exactly, Dr. Lee replied. They've never faced an enemy that doesn't follow their rules. When they saw our military history, they were horrified by what they called our barbaric methods. General Choi stood and walked to the main display. Show me these rules they expect us to follow. Dr. Lee brought up a translated document. Battles must be scheduled in advance. Both sides agree on the location, usually an empty planet or asteroid field. Forces must be equal in number. Civilians are completely off limits. Environmental damage must be minimized. Surrender must be accepted immediately when offered. And, most importantly, the goal is to win through skill and honor, not through destruction. Colonel An laughed bitterly. They want us to fight with one hand tied behind our backs, not just one hand, said Captain Kim So-min, who had also returned with Admiral Park. They want us to fight like we're putting on a show instead of actually trying to win. President Kim's voice came through the speakers. What happens if we agree to their rules? We become their subjects, Admiral Park answered from his seat at the table. They made it clear that accepting their guidance means accepting their authority over humanity. And if we refuse? President Kim asked. They'll start what they call an educational campaign, Dr. Lee replied. A series of small battles designed to teach us proper military behavior. General Choi turned to face the group. They think they're dealing with primitive children who need to be disciplined. Admiral Song leaned back in her chair. Let them think that. The question is, what do we do about it? Colonel An pulled up tactical displays on her tablet. Sir, if we're going to fight, we need to understand their weaknesses. They've spent 3,000 years fighting by rules. What happens when they face an enemy that ignores those rules completely? Major Kang nodded. Their whole military system is built around predictable, formal combat. They probably have no experience with irregular warfare, surprise attacks, or asymmetric tactics. But they have superior technology, reminded Admiral Song. Their ships are bigger, their weapons more advanced. In a straight fight, they'll probably win. Then we don't fight straight, Colonel An said simply. Dr. Lee looked worried. Colonel, if we break their rules of warfare, we'll prove their point. That humans are barbaric. Maybe we are, Colonel An replied. But barbaric species survive. Civilized ones sometimes don't. General Choi held up his hand for silence. The decision isn't ours to make. President Kim, what are your orders? President Kim was quiet for a moment before answering. We cannot surrender humanity's freedom to aliens no matter how advanced they are. If they want a war, they'll get one. But General, I want options. Can we win? General Choi looked around the table at his officers. Against superior technology using conventional tactics, probably not. But if we're willing to use unconventional methods, do it, President Kim said firmly. Prepare our defenses, and, General, make sure they understand that humans fight to win. After the president ended his connection, the military leaders continued planning. Colonel An spread tactical maps across the table. They said they want to start with an educational battle, she said. Equal forces, agreed location, formal rules. What if we agree but don't follow their rules? That would be cheating, Dr. Lee pointed out. No, Major Kang corrected. That would be winning. They assume we'll fight by their rules because that's what civilized species do. But we're not civilized by their standards, remember? Admiral Song pulled up fleet deployment charts. If they want a demonstration battle, we should give them one. Just not the kind they're expecting. General Choi nodded slowly. What do you have in mind? They'll expect us to send equal forces to meet them in formal combat, Colonel An explained. Instead, we send forces that look equal but fight completely differently. No formal formations, no honor guards, no ceremonial weapons. Just soldiers, trained to win at any cost. Captain Kim So-min had been quietly listening. Now she spoke up. We need to pick our best fighters for this, people who understand that this isn't a game. I know just the person, Colonel An said. Private Nam Ki-wan, young, tough, and absolutely ruthless in combat. He doesn't know the meaning of surrender. Dr. Lee still looked concerned. What if our tactics work too well? What if we actually hurt them badly? Admiral Song's expression was grim. Dr. Lee, they're coming to make us their subjects. If we don't hurt them badly, humanity loses its freedom forever. The meeting continued for hours as Earth's military leaders planned humanity's response to the alien ultimatum. They designed tactics that ignored every rule of civilized warfare, prepared weapons that prioritized effectiveness over honor, and selected soldiers who understood that losing meant slavery. Meanwhile, in space, the alien fleet waited patiently. High Commander Vextel was confident that humanity would either surrender or provide an easy demonstration of coalition superiority. War scholar Crixmoth spent his time studying human military history, trying to understand how such a chaotic species had managed to survive so long. On the crystal world of the Battle Singers, Quendar practiced her combat forms, preparing for the honor of defeating humanity's champion in single combat. She had fought hundreds of duels and never lost one. The thought that a primitive human might pose any real challenge never crossed her mind. Back on Earth, Private Nam Ki-wan received his orders in a military base outside Seoul. At 22 years old, he had already served in 3 different conflicts and earned a reputation as someone who never gave up, no matter how bad things got. You want me to fight an alien champion? He asked his commanding officer. That's right, Private. Single combat on a barren moon. They think it's going to be a formal duel with rules and ceremony. Nam Ki-wan grinned. What kind of rules? The, kind we're going to ignore, his officer replied. You fight to win, son. Whatever it takes, Nam Ki-wan nodded. He had grown up in the slums of Busan, where you learned to fight dirty or you didn't survive. The idea of fighting with honor and ceremony seemed stupid to him. In a real fight, you used every advantage you could find as Earth's 7 days ran out. Both sides prepared for what they thought would be a simple demonstration. The aliens expected to teach humanity a lesson about proper warfare. The humans prepared to show the aliens what real fighting looked like. Neither side truly understood what they were starting. The coalition had never faced an enemy that refused to follow their rules. Humanity had never fought opponents with such superior technology. But there was one crucial difference. The aliens thought they were starting an educational exercise, while the humans knew they were fighting for their species' freedom. On the day the ultimatum expired, High Commander Vextal sent his final message to Earth. Humans of the third planet, your time has ended. We will now begin your education in proper warfare. A formal challenge is issued. Single combat between champions, followed by fleet engagement with equal forces. The location coordinates are attached. General Choi responded personally. We accept your challenge. Our forces will meet yours at the designated coordinates. What he didn't say was that Earth's forces had no intention of fighting by coalition rules. They were going to fight the only way humans knew how. To win, as ships from both sides moved toward the battlefield, soldiers on both sides prepared in very different ways. The coalition forces checked their ceremonial armor, reviewed proper combat forms, and prepared for an honorable demonstration of military skill. The human forces checked their weapons, reviewed target priorities, and prepared to do whatever was necessary to protect their homeworld. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin, and neither side truly understood what they were getting into. The coalition thought they were teaching a lesson to primitive barbarians. The humans knew they were fighting for survival against technologically superior enemies. But there was something the aliens had missed. The barren moon hung in space like a gray rock, chosen by the coalition as the perfect place for humanity's first lesson in proper warfare. On its dusty surface, two figures faced each other across a flat plain, marked with ceremonial circles. Battle Singer. Quendar stood in the center circle, her crystal body catching and reflecting the distant sun's light. She wore traditional dueling armor that looked more like jewelry than protection, and carried a weapon that hummed with musical tones when she moved it through the air. 50 meters away, Private Nam Ki-wan crouched outside the circles, checking his equipment one final time. He wore standard Earth military gear, gray camouflage, body armor designed for real combat, and a rifle that was built for killing, not ceremony. In orbit above the moon, ships from both fleets watched the confrontation. High Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this would be a quick demonstration of coalition superiority. Battle Singer Quendar has never lost a duel, he told war scholar Crixmoth. The human will learn proper combat etiquette or be quickly defeated. On the human command ship, Admiral Park watched the surface through a tactical display. Captain Kim So-min stood beside him looking worried. Are we sure about this? She asked. Private Nam doesn't understand their dueling customs at all. That's exactly why we picked him, Admiral Park replied grimly. On the moon's surface, Battle Singer Quendar raised her weapon and began the traditional pre-combat ritual. Her crystal form glowed brighter as she moved through elegant poses that had been perfected over centuries. Each movement was graceful and beautiful, like a deadly dance. Private Nam watched her performance with confusion and growing impatience. He had been told this was supposed to be a fight, but the alien was just waving her weapon around in pretty patterns. Finally, Quendar completed the ritual and spoke, her words translated by the communication system. Human warrior, I greet you in the name of honor. Step into the sacred circle and we shall demonstrate the art of combat. Nam Ki-wan looked at the decorative circles drawn in the dust. They seemed pointless to him. In every real fight he'd ever been in, the first rule was to use the terrain to your advantage, not to limit yourself to a small area. Instead of entering the circles, Nam moved to a pile of rocks that would give him cover. I'm ready when you are, he called out. Battle Singer Quendar's glow flickered with surprise. Human, you must enter the sacred circle. The duel cannot begin until both warriors are properly positioned. Nam Ki-wan had no idea what she was talking about. In his experience, a fight began when someone started shooting. He raised his rifle and fired a warning shot past the alien's head. I said I'm ready, he repeated. In orbit, the alien commanders were shocked. War scholar Crixmoth's 6 arms moved in agitation. He refuses to follow proper form. This is chaos. Battle Singer Quendar tried again. Human, please observe the traditional protocols. We must begin with the ceremonial challenge. Nam Ki-wan was getting tired of waiting. He had been sent here to fight an alien champion, not to watch some kind of religious ceremony. He fired another shot, this one aimed at the ground near the alien's feet. "Fight me or don't," he called out. "But stop dancing around." Battle singer Quendar finally realized that the human either didn't understand or didn't care about proper dueling procedures. With a musical tone that sounded like a sigh, she raised her weapon and moved toward him. But instead of entering the sacred circles, the human had positioned himself behind cover with a clear field of fire. This wasn't how duels were supposed to work. Warriors were meant to face each other in open combat, demonstrating skill and honor. Battle singer Quendar tried to salvage the situation by approaching in the traditional manner, her weapon held in a formal guard position. Nam Ki-wan watched her come and couldn't believe what he was seeing. She was walking straight toward his position with no attempt to find cover or concealment. When she was halfway to his position, Nam opened fire. Not warning shots this time, but aimed bursts, designed to hit center mass. Battle singer Quendar's crystal armor absorbed most of the damage, but the force of the impact staggered her. In all her centuries of dueling, no one had ever opened fire while she was approaching for formal combat. The concept was so alien to her that she almost couldn't process what was happening. She tried to return fire with her musical weapon, but Nam had already moved to a different position. While she had been focused on proper form and ceremonial approach, he had been studying the terrain and planning his tactics. Battle singer Quendar found herself fighting an enemy who refused to stand still, refused to fight fairly, and showed no respect for the art of combat. Every time she tried to engage him in proper single combat, he would move, take cover, or attack from an unexpected angle. In orbit, the alien commanders watched in growing horror. "This is not combat, War Scholar," Crixmoth said. "This is butchery." High Commander Vextal's 4 eyes were fixed on the battle below. The human fights without honor. He shows no skill, no artistry, he simply tries to kill. "That's exactly what he's doing," Admiral Park said quietly, watching from his own ship. He had patched into the alien communication frequencies and could hear their confused discussions. On the surface, battle singer Quendar was learning what human-style combat actually meant. Nam Ki-wan used every dirty trick he had learned in a lifetime of real fighting. He threw rocks to distract her, used dust clouds to hide his movements, and targeted her weapon instead of engaging in direct combat. When battle singer Quendar's musical weapon was damaged by a well-placed shot, she did what any honorable warrior would do in such circumstances. She offered the traditional surrender. Her crystal form pulsed in a specific pattern while she spoke the ancient words. "Human warrior, I yield. My weapon is broken and I can no longer fight with honor. I acknowledge your victory." Nam Ki-wan had no idea what she was saying. The translation system was working, but the concepts didn't make sense to him. The alien was still standing, still moving, still potentially dangerous. In his experience, you didn't stop fighting until your enemy couldn't fight anymore. He fired again, aiming for her legs to bring her down. Battle singer Quendar's crystal armor cracked under the impact and she fell to the dusty ground. Even then, she tried to explain. "Human, the duel is over. I have surrendered. Honor requires that you accept my yield." But Nam Ki-wan had never fought a duel in his life. He had fought for survival in back alleys and battlefields where surrender was often a trick to catch you off guard. He approached carefully, keeping his weapon trained on the fallen alien. Battle singer Quendar tried. "One more time. Please, the combat is concluded. I offer no further resistance." Nam Ki-wan looked down at her and made a decision based on everything he had learned about staying alive in a hostile world. An enemy who could still talk could still fight. An enemy who could still fight could still kill you. He fired one final shot. The silence that followed was complete. In orbit, both fleets stared at their displays in shock. Battle singer Quendar's life signs had stopped. War scholar Crixmoth's 6 arms shook with emotion. He killed her, after she surrendered, after the duel was over. High Commander Vextal turned away from the display. Savages, complete savages. On the human ship, Captain Kim looked pale. Did Nam understand that she was surrendering? Admiral Park shook his head slowly. I don't think our concepts of surrender translate. In his world, you fight until you can't fight anymore. The first phase of humanity's education was supposed to end with a demonstration of proper combat etiquette. Instead, it ended with the death of one of the Coalition's greatest champions, killed by an enemy who had never learned to fight by anyone's rules except survival. But the educational demonstration wasn't over yet. According to Coalition protocol, the single combat was to be followed by a fleet engagement between equal forces. High Commander Vextal, shaken by what he had witnessed on the moon's surface, was now determined to show humanity the consequences of their barbarism. Prepare the fleet for formal engagement, he ordered. Equal numbers, standard formations. These humans will learn proper space combat or they will be destroyed. Captain Kim So-min, commanding the human fleet elements, received her orders from Admiral Park. Remember, Captain, they're expecting us to fight by their rules. Don't give them what they expect. The space battle that followed was even more shocking to the aliens than the duel had been. The Coalition ships moved into traditional combat formations, expecting the humans to respond in kind. Instead, the human ships ignored all conventional tactics. Lieutenant Commander Oh Soo-jin, tactical officer on the lead human ship, had studied the alien formations carefully. She could see exactly what they were doing wrong. They're flying in parade formation, Captain. No evasive maneuvers, no defensive positioning. They're sitting ducks. Then let's go duck hunting, Captain Kim replied. The human ships attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, ignoring the Coalition's attempts to arrange a proper fleet engagement. Sergeant Park Jun-seo led a boarding team that cut through the hull of an alien cruiser, fighting through corridors that had never seen real combat. The aliens had weapons designed for elegant space battles between honorable opponents. The humans had weapons designed to kill enemies as quickly and efficiently as possible. The Coalition High Council chamber buzzed with agitated voices from 7 different species. High Commander Vextal stood in the center of the circular room, facing representatives from across the galaxy, all demanding explanations for what had happened at the human demonstration battle. One of our greatest champions is dead, declared Counselor Mirthak of the Crystalline Dominion, her body flashing angry red colors. Killed after she had honorably surrendered. This is unprecedented in 3 millennia of civilized warfare. High Commander Vextal's 4 eyes moved around the circle of alien faces. The humans fight without honor, without restraint, and without any understanding of proper combat protocols. They must be stopped before their chaos spreads. War scholar Crixmoth, who had been quietly studying data tablets during the debate, finally spoke up. Honored counselors, I have been analyzing the humans' military history in greater detail. What we witnessed was not random savagery. It was systematic, learned behavior. Explain, commanded Supreme Counselor Yildar, eldest of the Assembly. Crixmoth activated a holographic display showing human conflicts throughout history. Every single human war follows the same patterns. They adapt quickly to enemy tactics. They use whatever weapons and methods are most effective regardless of honor. They show remarkable creativity in finding new ways to kill their opponents. And most importantly, they never surrender until they are completely unable to fight. Primitive barbarism, Vextal declared. Perhaps, Crixmoth replied, but effective barbarism. Counselors, in their recorded history, humanity has never lost a war of survival. They may lose battles, they may suffer terrible casualties, but when their existence is threatened, they always find a way to win. Counselor Zephyron of the aerial fleets made a dismissive gesture. Their primitive tactics worked against other primitives. Against our advanced technology and superior numbers, they cannot hope to prevail. With respect, Counselor, Crixmoth said carefully, that is exactly what their previous enemies thought. The debate continued for hours, but High Commander Vextal had already made his decision. The humans had humiliated the Coalition in front of the entire galaxy. Word of Battle Singer Quendar's death was spreading through space, along with stories of human ships that ignored all proper combat protocols. The Council's deliberations are noted, Vextal announced, but the hegemony will not wait for committees to decide our response. These humans threaten everything we have built. I will mobilize the full fleet and end this chaos before it spreads further. On Earth, the reaction to humanity's first victory was mixed. In military command centers, there was grim satisfaction. The aliens had superior technology, but they could be beaten. In civilian populations, there was growing fear. If the aliens decided to escalate, Earth might face total destruction. General Choi Min-ho stood in the war room, watching status reports from around the solar system. Earth's defenses were being strengthened as quickly as possible, but they still faced the reality of fighting a technologically superior enemy. Dr. Shin Mi-young, Earth's new psychological warfare specialist, approached with her latest analysis. General, I've been studying the alien communication intercepts. They're not just angry about losing the battle, they're terrified. Terrified of what? General Choi asked. Of us, sir. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that warfare is controlled, limited, and honorable. We represent everything they've tried to eliminate from the galaxy for 3,000 years. Colonel An Hyejin looked up from her tactical planning. That gives us an advantage, doesn't it? If they're afraid, they'll make mistakes. Dr. Shin nodded. More than that, Colonel. Fear makes them predictable. They're going to escalate, but they'll try to do it within their traditional framework. They can't imagine any other way to fight. Admiral Song Yerim, who had been coordinating Earth's space defenses, joined the discussion. Intelligence reports suggest they're mobilizing a major fleet, much larger than what we faced before. How much larger? General Choi asked. Preliminary. Estimates suggest over 300 ships representing all 7 coalition species. This won't be another demonstration battle, General. This will be an attempt to crush us completely. Major Kang Taejun, studying enemy fleet compositions, added his concerns. Sir, even with our tactical advantages, those numbers are overwhelming. We'll need to be very smart about how we fight this. General Choi turned to Colonel An. What are your recommendations? Colonel An had been working on this problem since the first battle ended. Sir, they're expecting us to meet them in open space combat. Instead, I suggest we make them come to us. Fight on our terms, in our territory where we can use every advantage we have. The solar system? Admiral Song asked. Exactly. We know every asteroid, every gravitational field, every piece of space debris between here and Jupiter. They don't. We can turn our home system into a maze of nasty surprises. Dr. Shin looked thoughtful. There's another advantage to fighting here. Psychological impact. If they want to defeat humanity, they'll have to attack our home directly. That will make this feel like a fight for survival to every human in the system. And humans fight differently when they're fighting for survival, General Choi said grimly. Across the solar system, preparations began. Asteroid mining stations were converted into weapon platforms. Space habitats became hidden missile bases. The orbital defense grid around Earth was expanded and reinforced. Most importantly, Earth's military forces prepared to fight a very different kind of war than their enemies expected. Meanwhile, High Commander Vextal assembled the largest coalition fleet in centuries. Representatives from all 7 species contributed their finest ships and most experienced commanders. The fleet that gathered at the edge of human space was truly impressive. Massive battleships that could destroy planets, elegant cruisers designed for precise combat, and support vessels equipped with technology beyond human understanding. War scholar Crixmoth stood on the bridge of Vextal's flagship, studying tactical displays of the human solar system. The more he learned about human capabilities, the more concerned he became. High Commander, he said carefully, the humans have had time to prepare their defenses. Perhaps we should consider negotiation instead of direct assault. Vextal's 4 eyes turned toward him with contempt. Negotiate? With primitives who murder surrendering champions? War scholar, your job is to analyze their tactics, not to question my strategy. Of course, High Commander, but their tactics suggest they will not fight as we expect. They may not even engage us in open space. Then we will go to them, Vextali replied confidently. Our technology is superior. Our numbers are overwhelming. Whatever tricks they attempt, we will overcome them through proper military science. Battle Commander Thexral, a veteran of dozens of formal conflicts, approached their discussion. Hi, Commander. The fleet is ready. All ships report optimal combat readiness. We can begin the assault whenever you command. Excellent. Signal all vessels. We advance to the human system. This time, there will be no educational demonstrations. We will show these barbarians the full might of civilized warfare. The Coalition fleet moved toward Earth's solar system like a vast mechanical organism, ships maintaining perfect formation and following strict tactical protocols. They expected to find human ships waiting for them in organized defensive lines, ready for a proper fleet engagement. Instead, they found empty space. Where are they? Battle Commander Thexral asked, staring at sensor displays that showed no sign of human forces. War Scholar Crixmoth had been studying the sensor data carefully. Hi, Commander. I'm detecting unusual readings from several asteroid clusters. The humans may have hidden their forces among the debris fields. Hiding, Vextal said with disgust. Even now they refuse to fight with honor. What the Coalition fleet had found was exactly what Colonel On had planned. A solar system turned into one giant trap. Human forces were hidden throughout the asteroid belt, on the far sides of moons and in the shadows of space stations. Every approach route to Earth was covered by weapons the aliens couldn't see. Corporal Lim Dong-Wu, now coordinating communications for the entire defense effort, monitored alien transmissions from a hidden base inside a converted asteroid. Ma'am, he reported to Colonel On. They're moving in standard formation toward Earth. No scouts, no probes, just straight-line advance. Perfect, Colonel On replied. Let them get nice and deep into the system before we spring the surprise. The Coalition fleet advanced steadily through the outer solar system, expecting human forces to reveal themselves and engage in proper combat. Instead, they found themselves flying into an increasingly complex maze of hidden dangers. The first attacks came from directions the aliens never expected. Sergeant Park Jun-seo led a team of engineers who had converted asteroid mining equipment into improvised weapons. When Coalition ships passed close to seemingly empty rocks, those rocks suddenly came alive with missile launches and beam weapons. Lieutenant Commander Oh Soo-jin coordinated attacks from multiple hidden positions simultaneously. Instead of the organized fleet battle the Coalition expected, they found themselves under attack from all directions by enemies they couldn't see. This is chaos, Battle Commander Thexral complained as his tactical displays lit up with incoming. The Coalition fleet limped through the outer reaches of Earth's solar system, its once perfect formations shattered by 3 days of continuous human attacks. High Commander Vextal stood on his damaged bridge, staring at reports that showed the unthinkable. His superior force was losing to primitive barbarians. Over 100 Coalition ships had been destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost perhaps 20 vessels, but their forces seemed to be everywhere at once, striking without warning and disappearing before retaliation was possible. War Scholar Crixmoth approached with the latest analysis, his 6 arms moving in patterns that indicated deep distress. High Commander, we must consider withdrawal. The humans are not fighting a war as we understand it. They are hunting us. Retreat? Vextal's 4 eyes blazed with fury. We represent 7 civilizations with 3,000 years of military excellence. We cannot be defeated by one primitive world. With respect, High Commander, we already are being defeated. Our formations are broken, our tactics useless, and our commanders are paralyzed by fighting methods they cannot comprehend. Before Vextal could respond, an urgent communication came from Battle Commander Thexral. High Commander, we have a problem. A human representative is requesting immediate communication under a flag of truce. Truce? Vextal was confused. They're winning. Why would they want to talk? The answer came when the communication was established. War Scholar Crixmoth appeared on the main screen, but he was not aboard a Coalition ship. Behind him stood a human officer and what appeared to be the interior of a human vessel. High Commander, Crixmoth said calmly, I wish to discuss the situation from a perspective you may not have considered. How did you get aboard a human ship? Vextal demanded. I surrendered to them 12 hours ago when my research vessel was disabled. Unlike us, they actually understand what surrender means, and they treated me according to their version of honor. Admiral Park Tae-ho stepped into view beside Crixmoth. Hi, Commander. War scholar Crixmoth has helped me understand something important about this conflict. We're not fighting the same war. Vextal's confusion was visible. Explain. Crixmoth spoke first. Hi, Commander. I have spent days studying human military philosophy while in their custody. What we call barbarism, they call necessity. What we call honor, they call luxury. They fight for survival, while we fight for demonstration. Admiral. Park nodded. Your war scholar has been teaching me about coalition warfare. It's beautiful, elegant, and completely unsuited for conflicts where one side is fighting for its existence. Humans are not barbarians, Crixmoth continued. They are apex predators who evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. Their warfare methods developed from millions of years of fighting for survival against impossible odds. Fleet Admiral Yu Sung-ho, Earth's Supreme Naval Commander, joined the communication from his flagship orbiting Mars. Hi, Commander. We could continue this battle until all your ships are destroyed. Our forces have you completely surrounded, and we know this system better than you know your own home worlds. Vextal looked at his tactical displays and realized the human was right. What remained of his fleet was trapped in a maze of hidden human forces, cut off from retreat and unable to advance toward Earth. What do you want? He asked finally. President Kim Dae-han appeared on the screen, speaking from Earth. We want you to understand that this war was a mistake from the beginning. You tried to force us to accept your authority based on the assumption that we were primitive and weak. You were wrong. Dr. Lee Jae-wook stepped into view beside the president. Hi, Commander, we've had time to study your coalition's history. 7 species that developed in peaceful environments, creating a civilization based on limited, formal conflict. It's actually remarkable. But it's not universal, added Dr. Shin Mi-young. Humans developed in constant conflict. Every day was a fight for survival. We learned to be adaptable, ruthless, and completely committed to winning because losing meant death. War scholar Crixmoth spoke to his own commander. Hi, Commander. There is no shame in acknowledging that we encountered something outside our experience. These humans are not our enemies by choice. We made them our enemies by threatening their freedom. Vextal was silent for a long moment, processing information that challenged everything he had believed about warfare and civilization. Finally, he spoke. What are your terms? President Kim's answer surprised everyone. No terms, High Commander. No surrender, no subjugation, no punishment. We want you to go home. That's impossible, Vextal replied. You defeated us in battle. By all civilized standards, you have the right to dictate terms to us. Admiral Park smiled grimly. High Commander, we don't fight by civilized standards, remember? We fight to protect what we value. What we value is freedom. Ours, and surprisingly, yours. Ambassador Park Yun-soo, Earth's chief diplomatic representative, took over the conversation. The coalition is welcome to maintain its traditional ways of warfare within its own territory. But humanity will not submit to your authority, and we will defend ourselves against anyone who tries to force us to do so. Fleet Admiral Yu added, However, we're also willing to teach you about our military methods if you're interested in learning. Not to make you into copies of us, but to help you understand that there are different ways to approach conflict. War scholar Crixmoth looked directly at his commander. Hi, Commander. I recommend we accept their offer. What I have learned in 3 days aboard their ships has taught me more about warfare than I learned in 3 centuries of studying coalition methods. The negotiations that followed were unlike any in galactic history. Instead of victory terms, humanity offered partnership. Instead of demanding submission, they proposed mutual exchange of knowledge and methods. Colonel An Hye-jin, participating by video link, explained humanity's perspective. We never wanted this war, High Commander. You forced it on us by demanding that we submit to your authority. But now that it's over, we'd prefer to have you as friends rather than enemies. Your warfare methods are terrifying to us, admitted Battle Commander Thexral, joining the discussion from his damaged ship. How do we know you won't use them against us in the future? Major Kang Tae-jun answered that question. Because we only fight when we're threatened. If you're not threatening us, we have no reason to fight you. The final agreement was revolutionary by galactic standards. The coalition agreed to recognize humanity as an independent species with the right to maintain its own military traditions. In return, humanity agreed to help defend coalition space against external threats and to share knowledge about adaptive warfare techniques. War scholar Crixmoth requested permission to remain with the human fleet as an exchange officer, becoming the first alien to study human military methods from the inside. His reports back to the coalition would eventually transform their understanding of warfare entirely. High Commander Vextal, humbled by the experience, made a personal apology to the families of Battlesinger Quendar. Private Nam Ki-wan, when the situation was explained to him, expressed genuine regret for her death, though he still maintained that he had only done what was necessary to survive. As the coalition fleet prepared to leave the solar system, Dr. Shin Mi-young made a final observation. High Commander, your people spent 3,000 years trying to make warfare civilized and limited. That's actually admirable. But you made the mistake of assuming that everyone else would follow your rules. And we made the mistake, Vextal replied, of not understanding that different worlds produce different kinds of warriors. The coalition fleet departed Earth space not as conquerors or prisoners, but as the first aliens to truly understand what humanity represented. Not barbarians or primitives, but the product of a world that had taught its children to be the ultimate survivors. In the months that followed, the relationship between humanity and the coalition evolved rapidly. Human military advisors helped coalition forces develop new tactics for dealing with unconventional threats. Coalition scientists shared advanced technology that helped humanity build better defenses for their expanding civilization. War scholar Crixmoth's reports became required reading at military academies throughout coalition space. His conclusion was simple but profound. We believed that warfare was a science to be controlled and limited. Humans know that it is a force of nature to be understood and directed. Both approaches have value. But in a universe full of unknown threats, survival may depend on understanding both. The war that was supposed to teach humanity its place in the galaxy instead taught the galaxy about humanity's place as protectors and survivors. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive barbarians became the guardians of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that some fights are worth winning at any cost. President Kim Dae-han, in his address to the United Nations after the conflict ended, summarized the situation perfectly. We never wanted to be warriors. We wanted to be explorers, scientists, and builders. But when someone threatened our freedom, we remembered that sometimes survival requires being the most dangerous thing in the room. The galaxy had learned that there was a difference between understanding combat as an art form and understanding it as a tool for survival. And